I felt the need to start recording real quick because I'm going to have to nip this one in the bud. Why do Americans say Graham?
What's his real name?
Graham.
Cracker.
It's Graham everywhere.
Graham. Fine. Graham. You know what, Ciarán?
Is it graham crackers? Is that how you guys spell it?
Yeah, it's graham crackers, dog.
Is that how you spell it with the H?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you just ignore the H and do like a big long A.
There's tons of words where you kind of just roll, like it just, if you say it quickly, it turns into like you just flatten the letters together.
No, because when I've heard graham crackers on TV and stuff, I just was like GRAM, graham crackers, like the unit of measurement. Just like, I don't know, 1 gram each or something.
Yeah, but we don't use the metric system, dog.
Yeah, but like...
I know. Yes, you're probably right. In the oddities of the United States, you could very well have that exist. You're right.
Yeah, because you have, like... Yeah, we, like, Oreos are a cookie. What are they made by? National Biscuit Company? It's like, yeah, all right. You guys have, like, a bunch of weird leftover stuff.
Wait, is that what Nabisco stands for?
Yeah.
Yo, what the fuck?
Well, what's the other one? It's just like, oh, yeah, no, we don't say post. We call it mail. Who's in charge of it? Postmaster General. Like, yeah.
That's a fucking cool post to have, though. Let's just be honest.
Postmaster General, yeah.
Postmaster General, yeah.
But
that's the only boy and
those are like institutional and administrative leftovers that, like, it's almost like they keep the outdated word to like set themselves above society.
Yeah. The only opposite, though, is that like college is the older word than university.
Yeah, but both exist in the U.S. and they're slightly different.
Even though,
like,
university.
all right, no, you're right, because like Boston College exists, which is a university, technically. Yeah. So,
Boston College is also where Father Ted moves in season 4.
Yeah, the actor doesn't die. He just,
keeps going. Hey, welcome to your bonus corner, Späti. We're doing something a little different here, where Ciarán has set up a little show and tell. We're going to call this show and tell. Show and tell, episode 1.
Ciarán found a cool frog behind his at the bus stop this morning and brought it into school to show his friends.
Yeah, like, okay, that's another thing I watched on American TV that we don't do in Irish schools, show and tell. It just seems like the most insane shit in the world. Like, yeah, I found a cool rock.
What are you supposed to do when you find a cool rock? Just not bring it to school?
Tell your parents about it? I don't know.
Oh,
what happens? What about if your
parents take it away from you, and then your parents have a cool rock?
What about when your parents have a really cool gun and you want to show your friends at school? What do you do?
Like, what part of, like,
you laugh about this.
But
yeah,
Rob's thesis is breaking his brain.
No shit. So there was like 1 year in like 3rd grade or whatever, you have like class plays that you put on. Like there was one that was like Wild West theme or whatever, and they were like getting props. And one kid was like, "Oh, I can bring in my BB gun as a prop." And they no shit let him bring his BB gun as a prop for this fucking 3rd grader's school play.
Out.
So
right. Okay.
Yeah. Given it was unloaded, but still, yeah. You say these things like it has not happened. That is pretty much like show and tell.
Oh, I believe it. I just find the concept of show and tell. I don't understand how anyone thought that was education. Just like, I found a cool rock and I'm going to tell my friends about it in like an institutionalized manner. It's like, are you learning anything here? What is this?
Yeah, so Ciarán has something for show and tell today. All right, Ciarán, stand in the front of the class. What do you have?
Yeah, here we go. All right, I found a cool rock. So the general concept of this idea is we're going to find some like cultural touchstones of like various European countries. I'm looking forward to like whatever the German equivalent of this is.
Modern Family.
Yeah, it's an American show that no one in the U.S. watches. Exactly. Germans, no shit, are very upset that like it's the last season of Modern Family. I've seen ads for it everywhere.
Yeah, that's fair. I think Latin America is also mad into the Modern Family or something. Yeah.
I think it's a show that I've seen literally every episode of just by being at people's houses.
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, the thing I'm going to show these guys is Father Ted, which I have shown them. For any Irish listeners who are listening, you know what Father Ted is. Yeah. For anyone who doesn't know, Father Ted is an Irish sitcom that ran for 3 seasons from 1995 to 1998. It is basically the Irish TV show. If I were to do this episode again with more Irish stuff, it will not. None of them will be TV shows, movies, or
Boondock Saints. Yeah, I know. Yeah. We've already done this episode.
Like a TV event, maybe. Like there's some live events that happen on Irish TV, but like I think this is the only TV show.
You mean like those little puppets that then ring in the New Year?
Yeah. Oh, you saw an ad for Podge and Rod's New Year.
Yeah.
I can't begin to explain Podge and Rod's. There's simply no time.
Father Ted, you can explain. But these 2 puppets who ring in the New Year with your family that then seem like the most fucking psychotic shit. I legitimately believe you. Yes.
Yeah. Podge and Rod. Puppets like have a weird role in Irish television. That actually might be a whole other episode. But when I talk about Father Ted, the Irish sitcom, for anyone who doesn't know, the general synopsis is it's about a priest in a remote fictional Irish community called Craggy Island. His name is Ted. He's also living there in the parochial house with the housekeeper, Mrs. Doyle, and 2 other priests, Father Dougal and Father Jack.
As I understand it, the Craggy Island is loosely based off the islands off Galway. In the pilot, he does mention Galway, and that there's a Ted Fest every year that takes place out on these islands. I don't know if you've ever been, Ciarán.
I have not been to Ted Fest. I know about
you haven't
Ted
lived.
Fest. I haven't dropped acid at Ted Fest.
I do think that those things, like, I don't know, like, they can't be that fun every year. Like, there are only like 18 episodes in total. We're talking 8-9 hours of content.
Yeah. Oh, but what content it is.
They're literally, I saw an ad on, like, not an ad, but like the sidebar for YouTube of like watch all episodes. It was like 20 episodes. I'm like, I could. You know, this is a one-day thing that I could definitely get done.
Not including the Christmas special. There's 25 episodes.
Yeah, I could do that.
Yeah, you could definitely do that. That's like one season of an American sitcom before Netflix.
This is me. I know what I'm going to do now. I'm just going to get really high and watch all the Father Ted episodes, then
drop acid.
Drop acid at Ted Fest.
I genuinely had a hard time picking the episodes that you guys are going to watch to show you guys. And there was even like with the Christmas episode, which I think is notoriously like the worst episode. But they had that like wonderful scene towards the beginning of it that I just had to show you. It's this show is big in Ireland. Massive. Still to this day, even though it was like the mid-90s this thing started. Ted Fest does happen. Yes, it is. Craggy Island is loosely based off of like the smallest Ciarán Island. I think that's what the overhead shots are that they use for the intro. But most of it's actually, well, the sound stage is in London, and then the outside shots are in County Clare, which I lived very close to. So this whole thing just reminds me of the 3 years I lived in rural Limerick.
Do you know anyone who was an extra on Father Ted?
I've met several people involved with Father Ted. Ireland is a very small country. That's actually a good. Let's go into that. So the main actor is Dermot Morgan, who I never met because he passed away in 1998, possibly 1997. I actually can't remember. But I went to the same secondary school as him, and my school was very proud of that fact that they produced Dermot Morgan, and also. Frank Kelly.
Sorry, that is like a funny metaphor for like, I don't know, like people who go to your high school is supposed to like inspire you to like dream big. And I mean, he seems like a very talented fellow, but it's like, there's something funny about the fact that like here in Ireland, if you get big enough, you can like wryly satirize your own culture. Like that's the peak of society.
The sadder thing is here in Ireland, if you get big enough, you can fuck off to London. That's like the real sadness of all of
Yeah,
it.
that's always a thing though. That then's like in the U.S. of like, oh, did anyone famous go to your high school? And like, I can only name one person. That's not really like, I don't know. Do you have someone, Rob?
No, like one arena football league player.
Yeah, it's all it's always like someone that's like
It's always
a
sports
D-list
players.
celebrity.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. For mine is Chad Musko went to my high school for if
not
you
a
played
real-
Tony Hawk.
That's a
pro
sleeve
skater.
McDyke ass
Yeah.
name.
Chad Musko.
The singer
Chad Musko's
JoJo
the greatest fucking
went-
character in
went to
fucking what's it called? Tony Hawk Pro Skater. You show respect, all right, brother?
I'm sorry.
The singer
Yeah.
JoJo went to the high school next to mine, I believe at the same time as my brother, so that was cool. The 90s.
Nice.
C-list pop star.
Yeah.
I think Ireland is a bit more. Well, I guess Ireland just doesn't have the massive media empire that the United States does. And then I think every secondary school, every school in Ireland has a claim to fame with like someone in sports. Because we have all our Irish sports, the GAA, hurling and Gaelic football and stuff like that. So I think it's pretty easy to have someone who was big in sports in Ireland go to your school, but like someone who was on the television, that's a bit more difficult. I think another connection is that my ex-girlfriend's older sister was in a TV show with Ardal McCandlin, the guy who plays Dougal. That was not very good. Yeah.
These are wonderful stories to tell your children.
I know, right? But I met Frank Kelly twice as well.
How was he?
He's lovely. He's genuinely a very lovely person. I made him a sandwich once back in my sandwich making days.
Which one's Frank Kelly?
Father Jack.
Oh, okay.
Your sandwich artistry days.
Artistry is a stretch, but sure, yeah. What do you call the people in Subway counters? That was basically what I was doing.
Sandwich artists.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Fucking Yanks. Anyway, okay, for people who kind of know Father Ted, I'm going to tell what I showed these two guys, which was Good Luck Father Ted, very first episode, mainly centered around the concept of Funland, which I think is a parody of an Irish traveling theme park called Funderland.
With no relation to Ursula von der Leyen.
No, yeah. Ursula von der Leyen, more like. Yeah, that's what she was. That's what she's von Funderland. I showed them the bit of the Christmas episode, and then 3 episodes from season 3. Are You Right There, Father Ted? The infamous "I Hear You're a Racist Now, Father" episode. Speed 3 and Going to America.
Hilarious.
That was a good episode, yeah.
I have to say, I think
guess,
Funland stuff was probably the funniest. I mean, it's the pilot, so I guess you've honed your script many times, but when you get it in. But I thought that was a pretty. I mean, I think some of the peaks of the show are when there's interactions between the priests. I hope I didn't step on your toes. This is a show about 3 priests interacting with the townspeople. There's a great scene in the pilot where there's like a husband and wife who are like seem like about to kill each other. Yeah. Then they're like, "Oh, Father, how are you, Father?"
I fucking that scene like killed me because that's way too.
One of them was hiding a comically large knife behind their back.
Yeah. That definitely is like real fucking Catholic vibes. And then in order to like, I mean, I don't know. For like, this is the thing of like growing up in a very Catholic household of my mom wanting to be like the best Catholic as she possibly can be, and then just like having like when you're like a kid, like, and I went to Catholic school too, so then like her marriage absolutely falling apart when I'm like in Catholic school, and then having to like obviously pretend to then like the priest that then like everything's baller, and then just like you obviously like you have to go for an annulment in the Catholic Church if you're going to not just like legally divorce, you have to divorce within the Catholic Church, which is like pretty difficult to do. So, which I don't think my mom ever actually did, because it's like, because it's like there is this thing of like having, and I know that like a lot of other families too within like the parish my mom belonged to, that was always the exact same vibe of like you knew the families outside of church, and then when they were in front of the priest, it was like, oh yes, Father, everything's great, everything's fantastic, and it's like they may even like know the priest more like personally or whatever, this and that, but like the priest doesn't really actually know them.
Get the fucking crunchies out of the car.
Yeah.
They're like recurring side characters. They're the local shop owners. And yeah, I think that's a direct satire of the fact that like when the show started filming, divorce was illegal in Ireland. And even after the referendum happened in 1995, which is when the show started airing, and even then in 1995, there was a 7-year separation period. You had to be legally separated for 7 years before you could officially get divorced.
Are you sure? You should think about it. Sleep on it for 7 years.
Pretty much.
Yeah, this is exactly what an annulment is in the Catholic Church. You gotta this makes sense.
The only it's now been reduced to 3 years, but like it's I think most amicable divorces in Ireland, I think, did a thing for a while where they would just lie and say, "Oh yeah, we've been separated for 7 years," but like that didn't really work for anything that wasn't amicable. So most people just like, yeah, there was a lot of shit like that, and Nick is right; it's very Catholic of just like keeping the marriage going, even though you really, really fucking shouldn't.
Yeah.
I really do love that first episode as well, because there's just a lot of like very Irish. The absurdity of Irish, like the word is naffness. I don't know what you would describe, like cheesy or cheap kind of like fun. Just like the absurdity of something like Funland definitely happened when I was younger. Just like the tunnel of goats, or like one of the rides being like a kid being allowed to go up a ladder, and then like the teenager working Funland shouting at him, "Hands on the sides!"
That was a high point, I think. I mean, you. I guess you want to introduce this later, but as I understand it, of the two writers of the show, one focuses on satirizing Ireland, and the other brings Cheeto dust, encyclopedic knowledge of Star Wars. If he was born as a millennial and not a privileged Gen Xer, he would just be a moderator of TV tropes his whole life, but he was able to get a job.
Yeah, I guess there's like there's a compare and contrast with the first episode, Good Luck, Father Ted, and Speed 3. You saw Speed 3, did you, Rob, in the end?
No fewer than 3 movie references, including several of movies that no one under 40 has seen, like The Towering Inferno.
Or Poseidon Adventure.
Yeah.
The Speed 3 is a very fun...
Thank you for like clarifying that for me. It's like, these are references. I know they are, but...
Yeah.
I did watch the first 20 minutes of Towering Inferno, I want to say when I was 9, and I slept through the rest, so...
That's like me whenever I watch an Avengers movie, so that's cool.
So yeah, I guess this is the time to introduce the two writers of the show, because like this is structurally a British sitcom. Like, it was made by a British production company and was shot in London. Like, all the indoor scenes were shot in London. And British sitcoms in general, and Irish sitcoms are the same, even the ones made in Ireland, don't have writers' rooms. You literally have the person who created the show, or people who created the show, write all the episodes, which is why a season of a British sitcom is like 6 episodes long rather than 25. So the two writers who wrote all these episodes are lesser known Arthur Matthews and internet villain Graham Linehan.
Someone who we've never talked about on the show, but is obviously figures into...
Ciarán's brought him up like a couple of times just in passing.
I feel like
he's like a transphobe, but...
Yeah. That's what people know him as. But yeah, this is where Graham Linehan gets his start. And as Rob kind of alluded to, the difference between Arthur Matthews and Graham Linehan is, as far as we can be able to tell post Father Ted, Arthur Matthews is the one who was more satirical of Ireland. He was the observer of Irish life. I think he's from a more rural part of Ireland. Graham Linehan comes from Dublin, as far as I know. And Graham Linehan was, like, to put it in a friendly way, a cinephile. Like, he would just love...
That's a word for
films.
it.
Yeah. But, like, he just rewatched the classics and stuff, and he's aware of the tropes. And to be honest, I think the combination of the two of them make something decent.
That's fair.
Because if it's Arthur Matthews by itself, or things that have been... Arthur Matthews has made TV shows in Ireland before by himself. But if it's something like Arthur Matthews by himself, things have a tendency to get a little navel-gazy about Ireland and lack any kind of appeal beyond Ireland. I think it's also worth pointing out that, like, the United States has a much richer cinema and television tradition than Ireland does, so you might want to pull from their lessons. I think the combination does work. But, like, Speed 3 is just, like, Speed 3 did not have to be set in Ireland, basically. That episode of Father Ted.
I feel that you're, like, too, like, tough on Graham Linehan, whatever the fuck his name is, transphobe, fella.
Yeah.
Because the other shows that he's done are actually, like, quite funny. Like,
oh, no, he is funny. But the other shows that he's done, like, he left... I like the IT Crowd.
IT Crowd's a good show. Like,
my personality is that, like, sometimes I sit down and be like, I've never done this thing. I gotta learn about it. And so, like, recently that's been the history of Rome and Nick Cave. And so, like, at some point when I was like 20, I was like, gotta see what this IT Crowd thing's about. And then I was like, underwhelmed. I don't know. I'm not a TV guy.
I know you're a cinephile.
Yeah, you like the classics.
You like Star Wars.
Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes. But the thing that I would point out about the other stuff that Graham Linehan has done is he left Ireland and any kind of, like, discussion of Ireland, like, almost immediately. IT Crowd is not, like, despite one of the main guys being Irish, is not an Irish show.
Yeah.
Good to know your strengths.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas Arthur Matthews went on, like, he's wrote for TV shows on RTE and RTE2, the national broadcasters in Ireland. He's done theatre in Ireland. He still does, like, writing on TV shows in the UK. But, like, he worked in Ireland again, basically. Whereas Graham Linehan kind of, like, left it all behind after Father
Went
Ted.
to the big time. Went to the
big smoke.
Yeah. The big, helpsits of transphobia.
I just like this quote that you put down, Ciarán. It's from a 2012 interview with Arthur Matthews saying, Graham spent a lot of time listening to the Pixies and watching Taxi Driver. When I knew him first, it was like he'd never been outside the house, except to go see Star Wars films.
Pretty much.
He was a shut-in. And then this is someone who's, like, just because of, like, I mean, like I alluded to earlier, circumstance, luck, but also, like, you've like locked yourself in a room and watched the same, like, I don't know, script for producing something like a TV show until you can repeat it. It's like not learning a language, but memorizing every, like, sound of it. And then they're like
learning to speak English like a parrot does.
Yeah. And then it's like, well, we should, like, this person clearly should, like, comment on what society needs and how it should be run and what people have rights and things like that. Like, I just do think it's like, why I just don't like that dude. There's just something, like, he just,
I don't like him for his personal
grating.
politics, but I don't really see that. I can definitely separate his work from the fact that he's a piece of shit. Like, I've enjoyed some of his other stuff that I do, like, actually enjoy, and yeah, it is problematic, some of the episodes here and there, and I mean, maybe this also comes from the background of then, like, when you like music that you just know that you shouldn't look into what the personal politics of these people are, is like, I can definitely, like, go and, like, yeah, fucking, drag him on Twitter, this and that, but it's like, I'm not gonna, like, not admit that I don't enjoy, like, the bits of Father Ted that I've seen, regardless of who wrote which part, I found the show, like, genuinely funny. And I, like it can exist in that. Like for me, like I don't need to like know that the guy who made it sucks, regardless of which one it is. I don't know. That's just me personally. Then again, like I said, this probably comes a lot from, being into extreme music, where if you just like look into like, oh, what are the politics of this bit? Oh, they're all racist. Well, I'll just make sure not to give them any money.
I think I do understand where Rob's coming from, and it's like a personal taste thing.
Yeah, no. I mean, like to each their own on this one.
Because I get what Rob's saying. Like it's kind of like he's learned a formula to an extent. There's like not much in the way of artistry there. He's made something good, but like I think the other thing that's happened, or what happened with Graham Linnon's career over time, is that he had a poor ability to recreate his successes.
I believe
because the
that.
formula wears over time, and I don't think he was taking anything new in. Like even the stuff that you're talking about, like that he would love to watch, like go and watch and see, is kind of like not necessarily the generation before him, but a bit before his time, even. Like he's like engaging with media that was written from like on like a top 100 list from on high. It's worth pointing out that like they met while working for Hot Press, which is, I guess, the Irish equivalent of like Rolling Stone magazine. It's like a musical criticism magazine, and he does have like his tastes in film and stuff like that have exactly that. I'm an art critic, like Gen X art critic type of thing.
Yeah, it definitely seems that the motherfucker who like goes and types in like 100 best movies and like we'll just watch them.
Yeah, I have a lot of personal revulsion to these kinds of people, so that also explains me. Just because like it's like, yeah, I was that when I was movies, I was that when I was 16. And yet you're a 50-year-old man getting banned from Twitter. So, it's like success can sometimes, not lead to personal growth. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but this is just the problem of Gen Xers, though, right? Like, this is like this is a generational problem for them. Is that they literally grew up in like the best. I don't know how it is in Ireland, but I know for like Americans, it's definitely like they grew up in like most silver spoon in their, especially white Americans, in the best years of like, best economic years, best opportunity, like job opportunities, didn't have the massive amount of debt and shit like that. And they're the first ones to complain about like they're just as fragile as boomers are, but their brains aren't nearly as much yet as boomers are either. So they live in this like continuous existence of like that they need to have like this like level of validation that no one should give them, And I'm imagining this is like probably internationally similar within just Western world, like the Western, sphere of influence. So yeah, I mean, I think that in that case, yeah, like he should be bullied. But again, like,
yeah, I think it's just there's a very common, I want to say, liberal trap of, which gets difficult with the whole like separating art from the artist thing, because there's this liberal belief that people who are good at what they do are good people.
Yeah, it's like definite like J.K. Rowling vibes similarly as well. Like she's definitely like the quintessential Gen Xer. Also notorious transphobe.
Yes, but I'm more thinking of like when people were liberals were trying to defend a little bit like Amy Coney Barrett, was that it? The latest Supreme Court justice. They're like, oh yeah, let's look at her credentials. It was like, I remember I think it was Nathan J. Robinson who was like yelling on Twitter, was like, yeah, she's good at being a lawyer, but she uses that for evil. Like it's like I think there's this knee-jerk reaction when some liberals find out that Graham Linehan is a massive transphobe, that they want to just say all his work was bad, even though they probably enjoyed it a couple of years ago.
I think on the left though we have that problem. Like we just do.
Sure.
And I mean like this is the thing. I'm very much in the camp of like like as long as it's like that you aren't like actively, all right, if the person's work is like actively calling for these bad things, like like the most notorious example of music that I can obviously give is like someone like, I mean, what's like the most like heinous thing you can think of? All right, I don't know, so many metal bands I can think of.
I'm more thinking like there's a lot of rappers who would have like very derogatory language towards women, which was pretty common in like 90s and 2000s rap, and then you find out they like beat a woman, and you're just like, that's not good. Like those like who's that guy who beat up Rihanna?
Chris Brown.
Chris Brown.
Yeah.
But that's like a whole other different. I feel that like pop music and that level is a whole other different thing. But like more like, I mean, like the best example I can think of is like Varg from Mayhem, where he's like an open neo-Nazi, but like a lot of the lyrics of his music aren't really like neo-Nazi-esque, but if you like dig deep, they actually kind of are. That one's like definitely on the fence of like, I know people who've stopped listening to his side projects, and I'm like, and I don't like, that was stuff I thought that was cool when I was like younger, you know? And then it's like, you realize like, oh, he's a Nazi, and it's like, all right, well, I can like not listen to that, you know? Like that's a pretty easy one to make, or like bands who are like openly like about racist bad shit or whatever, or like actually like, you know, I don't know, people who've like done songs or music about like murdering people or some shit, and then like have actually been like, you know, convicted for murder. Like that's actually like, you know, kind of hard to separate, you know, one from the other. But it's still not, I would still argue that then that they're not like preaching that you should go and kill someone, you know?
Yeah.
Like that's like much more of a gray zone, I think, than like, I don't know, like I guess it's just simply in the sense that then, like, if your brand is being something that then's like promoting bad behavior, like not even just like bad behavior, but like actually like, and I think it's like you know, either like racist or like, you know, xenophobic or sexist behavior, then that's like, you know, on the line of like being questionable. Where I would say that then in these TV shows, it's like not really the case, but it's like up to you then if you want to support it, you know? Yeah. Like, I think on the left, we just want to be like, you know, so pure about like everything I listen to and watch is woke, when we'll just like end up watching and listening to the shittiest stuff that exists, you know, or we'll get the like liberal take of things where everything has to have like a deeper meaning, which then just becomes lame, you know, or becomes open American propaganda. Like, what do you want?
I just think Graham Linehan is a husk of. I'd rather hear what Varg has to say than Graham Linehan, because I think Varg is a strange mind, and it's like I don't know what.
Oh yeah,
I don't know what this. Whereas Graham Linehan is such a
because
he's like
he's really exactly. Weird.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on, Rob.
No, just like Graham Linehan, he's just like I don't know. He's one of those people in the world that deeply makes me sad. Like such an empty person.
Yeah, that's fair. Right, so I think unless we have anything else to say,
sorry for that sidetrack.
No,
it's fine, because this is actually something that like really does bug me. Like no, it doesn't bug me, but I think it's always like something that then like never is honored, like an actual discussion in the left of like, is it okay to participate in someone's work even though you know the person's like. I mean, Grant Linehan is not like a horrible person, just a shit politics. Where like there are like legit horrible people who have made art. Like Picasso is probably one of the best examples of that. You know, can you still call Picasso a great artist even though he was like a pedophile and like openly a pedophile and stuff like that? Like those are discussions I think that then like, you know, who there is like that one who's the stand-up comedian who like did that stand-up thing that wasn't funny, but it was just like a preachy 1.5 hour long thing.
Are you talking about Nash?
Yeah, exactly. Like that entire thing was like half of her thing was about like deconstructing art and stuff like that. And I just found it like really boring and preachy and like, dude, we fucking all know this. If you look up any of these people for 2 seconds, you know, like I don't see what the point of then like discrediting their art is then at that point, you know? Like
Yeah.
Like I said, sucks. I mean, like I would even say that then comedy's maybe even like art in a similar sense, but you know, it's still enjoyment, it's still entertainment.
Yeah.
So there is a discussion there that then like the left never really wants to have, because it's always like, oh, they're canceled, I'm not going to enjoy it. It's like I still think this shit's funny. Like
I think like a Marxist left always gets a bit like, well, this is culture. This is like not like this is extraneous to like. You know, they reject the kind of liberal belief of like culture influences politics and go with politics influences culture the other way around. So culture can just be whatever.
Which is I guess, you know, fine. Yeah, sure. Take whichever one you want. Pick your poison.
If you know, if you're out there and you want to get into some school shooters, but they're all Nazis, you should check out Adam Lanza, Sandy Hook shooter, who was an anarcho-primitivist and called into John Zerzin's radio show once.
Rob's
I'm
thesis
sorry.
episode
You
is
can
coming
cut that.
soon.
You can cut that.
No, I'm leaving it because why not?
We're behind the paywall. Right, so those are the two writers, and it's kind of like what we want to say about that. Graham Linehan, bad person, but he has money for a reason. Arthur Matthews.
What I'm saying is that if you like their stuff, pirate it.
Yeah, there you go. It's all like every episode of Father Ted's free on
It's on
YouTube. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Yeah. But okay, then I think we have the actors, who I'll talk about briefly. We have Dermot Morgan, who played Father Ted. He died a day after the shooting of season 3 wrapped. Yeah, so he's kind of memorialized in Ireland as this like great satirist and comedian and stuff. I think where his ashes are scattered, there's like a Joker's chair or something, like a Joker's throne, a statue in bronze.
Oh, the Joker, yes.
Yeah,
The Irish Joker.
He is the Joker. But yeah, he died of a heart attack day after filming.
Does it say why so serious on his tombstone in Irish?
No. Which is actually, I do want to lead to two things. I showed you guys the last episode, and there's two things that I do want to mention about that in the context of Dermot Morgan dying. Which is the original script for the last episode was Father Ted committing suicide.
I want to back up for a second because
sure.
So the three main characters, I mean the three priests or whatever you want to call them, they're like Father Ted is like he reminds me a lot of like a Seinfeld character. Like he's trying to be like, he's like does like bad or selfish things, and he tries to cover it up. But he's still like the protagonist and someone you're supposed to root for. And then there's the like,
what's up with that? What's with all these sacraments? That classic Father Ted line.
That classic Seinfeld line for that matter. And then the like kind of the dumb, but who gets like most of I think he was like, considered the funniest, the other I'm sorry, I forget the names of the characters, the like dumb one, Dougal, and then the old man who sits in a chair and yells, which any show or podcast needs, like just someone in the corner.
The Matt Christman of Father Ted.
And so I can see like once I think even reading on Wikipedia or something, they say that they were inspired by Seinfeld, and what Seinfeld was so good at is like, sort of like popular TV shows are inherently cheesy. There's like montages, and it's sort of like, how do you stick to like something, I don't know, like outside the box or even subversive, while still like landing it. I think the like Seinfeld finale is very good at that. And it seems like they wanted to do that too, but then they just kind of were like, no, we can't do that.
Yeah. So like, first of all, I would say this also comes from the tradition of British sitcoms as well. British sitcoms basically never have happy endings. That is like one kind of distinct difference between British sitcoms and American sitcoms. Like I think the most famous one is I think it's Blackadder. Yeah, Blackadder ends with all of them charging over the trenches and dying in World War One. And this was like a comedic sitcom. Even if it's not
World
that
War
melodramatic,
funny.
Even if it's not that melodramatic, it will be like the ending will be you are stuck in the kind of like hell that we have created for you for comedic purposes, which is kind of what they did with this. Like you're not leaving to go to America, Father Ted. You're stuck in Craggy Island forever and ever and ever and ever.
I felt like it didn't really. Like Father Ted was a little like, oh, I love my friends, that's why I want to stay, rather than like there's some mishap that keeps him from leaving.
So the thing that happened, the thing that was meant to happen is the last scene was meant to be the next year's It's Great to Be a Priest convention, where both him and Tommy Tiernan, the depressed priest, are both on the ledge and both jump. That was meant to be the season 3 ending. Because they also knew that season 3 was going to be their last season because Dermot Morgan was just like, this is it, I'm done. I don't want to...
I'm dying tomorrow, guys. Peace. Clocking it out.
Oh, also, fun fact about that last episode, Tommy Tiernan, who went on to be like a famous comedian in Ireland, the guy who plays the depressed priest, still blames himself for Dermot Morgan's death because during the scene where Dermot Morgan is dancing to Shaq, he kept flubbing his lines. So they kept having to do the scene over and over again. And like Dermot Morgan was supposedly completely wrecked after like dancing to Shaq enthusiastically over and over again. So like, yeah, Tommy Tiernan still blames him for his death.
Yeah, which is like, I don't think that like a little extra dancing is like causes you to have...
the man smoked like a chimney.
Also very funny that you called it the theme from Shaft, Shaq, like the basketball player.
Fuck yeah, you're right. Shaft, yeah, that's a good point. They should remake Shaft with Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah, why not?
You know that has crossed a
that's like crossed some executive's desk.
Yeah, like 5 different times as a commercial.
Ago, yeah,
selling baby powder.
Yeah.
It's worth pointing out also that the 3 priest characters are basically the 3 archetypical understandings of what priests are by the Irish public at that point in time, which was basically Father Ted was, they're kind of like, they're corrupt, they're selfish, they're not pious, they're not like meant to be as good as they're, supposed to be. Father Dougal McGuire, it was like, yeah, the priesthood exists for like rich people's kids who are just thick as shit to be sent off somewhere because they're not going to get any real job.
That is funny. Is he supposed to be rich in the rest of the series? Because he just seems like a I don't know.
I don't think they ever
a golden
really
retriever.
Yeah, he is a golden retriever. Yeah, basically, but they don't ever go into it. But might have been his accent. Like the actual guy who plays him went to like one of Ireland's poshest schools, and I think listening back to it now, I kind of read his accent as someone who's a bit like rich.
His father was a Fine Gael politician, or Fine Gael.
Yes, he was. Yeah. He's like kind of landed gentry. He's one of those like country people who have like who come from a family that could afford to have like 7 kids and send one of them off to be like an actor.
If we have 12 kids, one of them will be on Ireland's biggest sitcom. just by the numbers.
I mean, statistically speaking, the more children you have, the higher likelihood that they can be on Irish television.
Then Father Jack is like your depiction of the priesthood as a place for monsters. Because the first introduction to his character we have in the very first episode is him ordering the all girls school to go out and play volleyball without their tops on. Like, yeah,
which was a pretty like biting joke. And then we jumped ahead to season 3 where he's just kind of going like in the corner.
Yeah, because I think he couldn't have been that much of a monster. Or like, yeah, we're pointing out there's also like a good deal of like Gen X cynicism. I think I pointed out that like they also did a satire of Sinead O'Connor, who was someone who was critical of that kind of behavior in the church. And they kind of like satirized her as like an idiot who didn't understand history and like a straw feminist and things like that. So there's this, very Gen X, like both sides are bad. Kind of thing.
Yeah. I, Graham Linehan, the smartest person in the world. No, I'm sorry. We don't know which one it was.
And then the fourth main character who gets like credits to the opening sequence is the housekeeper, Mrs. Doyle, played by Pauline McLean, who is just like a satire of Irish women over a certain age. Just very pushy, homely, somewhat oblivious, and quite cheerful. I don't really know how to describe
always bringing you tea.
Always bring you tea, yeah.
Really horned up for the milkman.
Dude, he was the coolest motherfucker. What's his name
Pat
again?
Mustard.
Yeah.
Pat Mustard.
He fucking, he fucked.
Again, like, all of these characters are what the internet would call types of guys. Because like the Pat Mustard guy was just this, I was hot shit in Ireland when I was in my like late 20s, early 30s. Like society peaked when Thin Lizzy released The Boys Are Back in Town.
That's actually true. Are we going to talk about Thin Lizzy in this series? I would love to.
Yeah, we could do that. Yeah. There's a statue of Phil Lynott.
Hell yeah,
in Dublin,
as there should be.
Yeah. But yeah, like he's kind of like a hangover. Like I have an uncle like this who will tell you stories about like, oh, I knew X band or that band, blah blah blah, and haven't really moved past those glory days.
That's sick.
You mean like the middle school, the band teacher at my high school who was a roadie for Kiss and would tell the story every year.
Yeah, but then he would also talk about the connections he had to the Ra. But
like, what?
It takes a different flavor in Ireland.
Can we back up with the milkmen? What's the milkman situation in Ireland, or at least in the 90s? Was it common? Was it like a country, like, I don't know, pre-neoliberal hold on to, like a holdover that people kind of clung to?
As we've discussed in the stream, the dairy industry owns this fucking continent. No, the Irish. The milkman existed. It might be gone now, but the milkman existed in Ireland until the point of like my mid-20s. Like when I left Ireland. Okay, so this was a thing. If you went out for like a night out at someone's house and you were like leaving their house at like 4 a.m. or 6 a.m. or something like that to grab like the first train home or something, it was like always a sign of a good night out when you were still awake and the milkman was up delivering milk.
I do appreciate the milk comments that I felt came directly from your mouth.
You better get moving because milk goes off unless it's UHT milk, but we don't have any of that because it's shite.
Yep, exactly. That's exactly the fucking quote. I'm like, Ciarán said this at one point, probably.
Yeah, I cannot stress
which
enough.
Which is the only milk that exists in Germany.
Yeah, I cannot stress enough how you cannot get long life milk anywhere in Ireland. It's just not a thing.
Yeah, it shouldn't be a thing anywhere, really. Let's just be honest here. I would rather, all right, I hate milk. I fucking hate milk. I can't stand it. And I think the reason I hate milk is because the only milk I've known in my life has been this drivel that, we, like, the U.S. doesn't have very good milk. Yeah, I mean, obvious. No. So, yeah. Maybe if I tried that sweet, fresh milk that's delivered at 4 o'clock in the morning, maybe I would have a different opinion on it. But I don't. Yeah. Also, lactose intolerant as well. But if it was good milk, maybe I would put up with it. I'm assuming that lactose intolerance is not really a thing that you can have in Ireland, but
no.
And if you do, you just got to suck it up.
It's like in the 1,000 years ago like 1,000 years ago, like 100 years ago when they didn't know about dyslexia and they're just like, toughen up, keep writing, keep reading. It's like that. It's like, it's milk, you're gonna drink it.
Just down the pint of milk.
I like to imagine the Mrs. Doyle character is what she's really like horned up for is just social democracy. Just like having a milkman come by. She reads imagine having this train map. She's like, oh.
Yeah, she just loves the fact that the milkman's a union worker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cannot stress enough how like the dairy industry in Ireland was like the last remnant of Irish social democracy.
Yeah,
the
Kerrygold is state owned.
Irish Gaddafi will come from a VP of Kerrygold taking it over and taking over the country.
Yeah, the Kerrygold Soviet.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, I guess we've gone into the actors a little bit. So like Dermot Morgan's kind of like frozen in time because he passed away immediately after Father Ted, even though he had like ambitions of doing other things. He was also kind of already famous in Ireland for doing a satirical radio show called Scrap Saturday. That he also did with Pauline McLynn, the woman who played Mrs. Doyle, which is how they knew each other beforehand. Frank Kelly stayed in Ireland mainly because he's fluent in Irish as well, so he was able to do stuff for the Irish language TV station. He died of a heart attack in 2016. Before that, I made him a sandwich.
Rest in peace. Maybe your sandwich killed him, Ciarán. How does it make you feel?
No, shut up.
You should have the same
Don't do
guilt
this
as Tommy Tiernan. Like this, like very like I said hi and I scared him a little bit, and so maybe that led to something.
Gave him a heart attack.
His tuna, mayo, and sweet corn baguette.
His what?
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
You remember his fucking order?
Yeah, I remember his order.
That's sick.
Because I worked in the shop around the corner from a place that like old people would like dive into the ocean from, and he would always go there regularly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you meant. I thought
this
was like you were talking about suicide or something.
No. Like
Actually,
Jesus.
That's an old Irish saying for commit suicide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This just reminds me of that thing. There's like restaurants in Berlin that do this thing of like whenever like every restaurant in the world does this, obviously. Like when a famous person comes in and they put the order of the famous person on the wall.
And there's the Frank Kelly, yeah. Yeah,
there's a place, I forget where it is in Berlin, that they have like George Clooney. It's like a Vietnamese place or something like that. They have like George Clooney's order or something like that that's up on the wall. It's like it was just a beverage.
I love that when the famous person does order from the menu and we just change the thing. I would like a beef pho. Oh, you mean a George Clooney? It's clearly just a beef pho.
A Sprite is a George Clooney.
A Sprite is called George Clooney here. Frank Kelly is also worth pointing out because despite Dermot Morgan, who like passed away, I think he's the only one who took like being on Father Ted in good spirits, like in that kind of usual actor way of like, I don't want to only be remembered for this one thing. Like the guy who plays Dougal has like a massive chip on his shoulder about that.
That's his only character?
Yeah, basically, everyone remembers him from that because he's definitely not like done anything more memorable or more critically acclaimed since. And even then, I think there's ways as actors to just like do enough stuff that people are like, oh yeah, he was in Father Ted, but I also saw him in this. No one says that of Ardal McCanlon.
I have to say he was pretty good. Father Ted I thought he played his character very well. The Dougal, he just has like kind of a goofy face.
Yeah, he's perfect for the role.
He delivered his lines very well. Yeah.
Yeah. And there was something like there's just like a lack of humbleness of just being like recognizing, because the thing is he just can't do anything else well. And if he just kind of like leaned into that of just like, okay, I'll just play like golden retriever style idiot, then I think he probably would have had like a happier existence.
Yeah.
As we all would if you think about it. Golden retriever, happiest dog.
Pauline went on to like win some awards in other TV shows that she did, but that's basically the story of all the four main actors.
I would say I have a few like bits from the episodes to share, and then before we get into some Catholic Church commentary.
Go first.
In the very last episode, this guy who I assume they're just like, can you sound more American? Like, no, but what like an Irish person thinks an American sounds like?
Yeah.
Like I was like, did they add an effect to his voice or something?
What was his name even? Because we gave him
Buzz. His name was Buzz.
Name.
Buzz.
Yeah, Buzz Chipley or something.
Yeah, anyway, one of his things are like selling why Father Ted should come to Beverly Hills or LA. He's like, you might meet Kevin Spacey. And I was like, is this a coded pedophilia joke? Because that's very funny. I don't know what they knew in the 90s. Kevin Spacey. Well, Kevin Spacey was tight with the Queen for a while, right? Like,
no, that's very. So it's also like we're pointing out, like, you know, Graham Lennon, who was this shut-in or whatever, that was like kind of idolized American media, but at the same time had this very Irish attitude towards America of like, oh yeah, like there's parts like Beverly Hills, it's all glamour, and you should be honored to ever just like be in the grace of someone like Kevin Spacey. Absolutely no subtext, absolutely no critique of like them. It was like, oh, wouldn't it be nice to meet him? But then also the perception of like deathly unsafe, gun shootings all the time, gang crime, like it's massively dangerous place. That is like 100% like a very Irish opinion of the United States.
That was funny because
a land of opportunity if you can survive.
It was like what turned it was like, yeah, mentioning that it's like a gang. There's a lot of gangs in the neighborhood, and that there's like a basketball court. And it's like, yeah, try to get kids to play basketball together. That's the line for me. I can't do that to try to bring the community together.
I think they handled that quite well in that episode, because the whole thing is they do the dialogue back and forth, because you realize everything that the American priest is talking about how great is his parish, and he does not mention it once what the parish until the very end, what the parish Father Ted's going to be like. Yeah,
with like the inequality of the U.S. and the image, and yeah, I see that.
Yeah. So it's obviously they were going to send him like to somewhere like inner city LA or Oakland or whatever that was in their imagination at the time.
Yeah.
I added that episode just for Rob, because I was like, I knew Rob was going to enjoy the like weird American depiction.
I do.
I wouldn't enjoy it.
No, but like this is why I love Thin Lizzy too. Talk about getting America. It's just like
Rob's favorite band, Thin Lizzy. You heard it here, folks.
I do love Thin Lizzy. I thought the episode where Father Ted's a racist, there were like very good moments. I remember now the scene you showed us once, Ciarán, with I heard you're a racist, Father Ted. That was very funny. But the reason that's funny is because it like, in my opinion, is that it like gets to the bread and butter, which is the priests interacting with the townspeople. Like that's when the show is at its best, I feel like. And some of the it was like forcing that, oh, he's a Nazi, and there's like, oh, these Chinese people that like they have to sit down and watch him be racist. It was a little like, I don't know. It just didn't quite land. Like,
I thought that landed really well. I have the exact opposite opinion of that. I find that very interesting, because I thought that was done really well. I really enjoyed that episode. I enjoyed that episode the most.
I never love a character that it's like your job is to be there and be like, this motherfucker's racist. You're on camera like 7 times.
That then like,
but it's like the whole episode.
No, but the thing is that then the entire point of it, I think, was like dealt in a way that then I think is a really good European way of dealing with racism. Is that then that a lot of Europeans would do so? Like, I mean, at least I know this in the sense of how like older Germans would probably do the same thing. Of that, then like the thing.
Do a slideshow of a picture of you with a black man.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like
the slideshow was funny, but every time I feel like it had to like. I mean, just because it was like
that he had Mr.
hilariously
Miyagi
racist
on there talking about how he loved Chinese people fucking killed me. Okay,
but Father Ted, first of all, the actor has a great racist thing where he's like he puts a lampshade on his head and he does his Chinaman routine, and then like the cutaway that like some like a Chinese family saw him. Like I just feel like it was going too much back to like these like a few. Actors playing the like Chinese people in the town being like, oh yeah, okay, he's going to apologize now and stuff. And like, I don't know. It just didn't quite flow for me.
I think that showed that racism doesn't pay. And that's the real lesson here. No, but the fact that he's like gifted all the Nazi memorabilia at the end of it's fucking fantastic. That's so good. It's so stupid too. Like it's just genuinely good, dumb humor.
I do really like the whole like, and over here we have my infantry helmets. But they're German as well, are they? Yes. Anything from the Allies? No, I wouldn't be interested in any of that. Just the slap cut of just like, okay, here's someone kind of tactfully, somewhat, or like they think tactfully not giving away they're a Nazi, then just widen the frame to the giant triangle.
Yeah, that was so, and I mean, like, it's, I do genuinely think it's funny too, because in just like the history of Ireland, I'm pretty sure that also had something to do with that as well, that there's like, a bit of like crypto fascist people just like scattered across that country.
I do wonder, like there is.
You also said too, like the Germans' opinion of Ireland's also very interesting. So the fact there's that old Nazi guy that then was there who like fled to Ireland afterwards, who was part of the Wehrmacht, is like probably historically very much a reality of Ireland. Of just like a bunch of old Nazis were like, well, I'm not high enough up to like have anything bad to me, but I just don't want to like be here anymore.
Yeah, there was some cases of like fairly senior SS people fleeing to like rural Ireland and just like living quiet existences. Like the poor Nazis Argentina. But to be honest, I think they just happened upon that by accident. Like, I think they just thought that would just be like a funny joke. I don't think.
Okay. So there is no like historical, relevance there. I'm reading
I think
too
there
much
is.
into
It's just
it.
like there is, but I think they landed on it completely by mistake. I
don't know that shit when they get home to his house for like the end party thing. Fucking killed me with the fucking Hitler portraits everywhere, the massive swastika. And the fucking Father Jack coming out of the fucking thing where the presents get swapped. Yeah, that's fucking hilarious. That's so good. But I can get it. Like, I can get if you don't like it because it's just genuine, just dumb, like actually stupid humor.
Yeah, personal preference.
Yeah,
I think there's episodes, Rob, if that's kind of like the shit you like, there's episodes I could definitely send you. There's the one where like the first crime happens on Craggy Island and like the police overreact and like purchase a helicopter.
That does sound good.
Or like the one where they have like where they're judging the like best sheep competition.
Oh hell yeah!
A huge scandal of it being rigged. And
I have personal preference, or there's a spot in my heart for sheep competitions because I have been to the county fair before where they judge the cows and stuff, and just the pleasure you see on the man's face when he's like, now that, and he just like spends like a minute and a half describing how beautiful this cow is. That's the way to live, baby.
I think there's something you land on there though, which is a little bit of an interesting thing because like this was on British TV and they had to like not censor it, but they kind of had to appeal to a British audience. There's things like they never refer to the police as the Gardaí, which is like you would never call the police in Ireland the police. You call them the Gardaí, but they just had to do that because this is on British TV. We can't, like, British people understand Irish accents. They don't know Irish vocab.
To be fair, I only could understand this show because I've known you for long enough.
Yeah, it's fair. But so there's things like that, and there's like a different lens as well, because I think you have this idea of you like when the priests are interacting with the village, but I guess for a lot of Irish people watching, we are standing in for the village. Like, because I can't stress enough how for Irish people this show is just like a list of, as Twitter would call, a type of guy, and we are just kind of like, oh, I knew someone like this person, or I knew someone like that person.
But I guess just not to keep bringing it up, but the reason I thought the like racism episode isn't good is because like the Asian characters don't get to be any type of guy. They're just like, this motherfucker's racist. Like that's the only, it's just a little.
Again,
cheap.
that's the thing, though, is that then that's like, not that I enjoyed the depiction of Asian people in this, but I do think that it is. I feel that then, like, you wouldn't have as, I don't know. I found that a very true depiction of how some Europeans, pick which ones you do, view like other people who aren't from there, that they are like a monolith, like to them. Like talk to again, like I said, use the example of Germans, and if it was supposed to be intentional or not with that, I don't know, but I think that dealt with that in a pretty realistic way of like that there's this like, well, I don't want to be racist, but then like also simultaneously it is still kind of racist,
I also want to point out that the reason I felt the need to really include this episode was because I do think Graham Linehan thinks that he is Father Ted in real life with the accusations of transphobia.
Probably.
Like, that's how he views himself, I'm pretty sure, in that like instant.
But yeah. Like exactly. Well, even if he doesn't, exactly the point of that. Then, even if you were trying to make a not racist, like exactly what Rob said of that. Even if it was like the sense of that you're trying to point out that Father Ted shouldn't be racist, the way that entire scene was still made because you created a monolith of Asian people, not by Father Ted, but by the direction of how the show made it, still ends up being like kind of racist. you know,
Yeah.
in like a more meta sense, not in the show sense of racism, you know.
Yeah. I think there is also, I'm not sure if it was intentional or not, but I think there is meant to be this critique of, or like a nod to a changing Ireland, because 90s is also, because of Ireland's prosperity during the 90s, is the only time we really saw influxes of other people, basically. There's like, one of the jokes is meant to be that it's absurd that a place like Craggy Island would have like a Chinatown.
Yeah.
It's also because it's just so remote, and which I guess leads us into like a just a small thing that I would say, which is the popularity of the show also kind of comes to like Ireland's relationship with the Catholic Church at the time. I did the big laundry list of like everything I found that happened in the 90s.
Yeah.
Was like,
But wait, you should go through that quickly because I want to. I mean, while this is Culture Hour,
Culture.
Run it down for the culture.
All right, so like I said, Father Ted was 1995 to 1998, but we had big events. 1992, we have the X case, which is like the courts finally force the Irish government to say if a woman's life is in danger because of pregnancy, she's allowed to get an abortion.
In that case, like there was an injunction to stop the family from going to the UK to get an abortion.
Yeah.
And then the court had to overrule that. Yeah, absurd. Like, yeah.
It was grim, folks. It was grim. Like when I was born, I think contraception was still illegal. 1992, Sinead O'Connor covers Bob Marley's War on Saturday Night Live while ripping a picture of Pope John Paul while singing Evil and yells, "Fight the real enemy."
Yeah. Well, Sinead O'Connor, what do Irish people, what is her role in Ireland? She was always someone that's like, people are like, man, she's crazy. Like, that's all I knew about her. I was like, but I mean, talking about how the church is doing child abuse in 1992, very true.
Yeah. Very, very true. Yeah. So my general critique of like Sinead O'Connor, critique, quote unquote critique, take on Sinead O'Connor is that she was right, but probably too early. And the press just like fucking clamped down on her real hard. Because I don't think she's crazy. I think my general point of view would be Ireland is way too fucking small. For libel reasons, there's a bunch of like musicians and comedians in Ireland that I know but can't say fuck kids. Not kids, teenagers, but still, you know, illegal shit. And Ireland is like way too small. So whenever I see Sinead O'Connor like attacking the Catholic Church for sexual abuse scandals and a more sexist media would kind of like label as overly emotional, overly hysterical, blah, blah, blah. I've seen that kind of response in a lot of Irish people before for various things. And it's just like, yeah, you saw someone close to you have their like lives ruined by this.
Enough to drive you crazy.
Like, yeah, absolutely. Like, so like one of the last points I have here is that in 1992, 1995, we have a bunch of like sexual abuse scandals come out regarding the church that happened since Ireland became a thing in the 30s. And like, yeah, they all came out in a public way and legally that we could talk about. But again, Ireland is so fucking small that there was definitely pockets of people who fucking knew. They just, you know, due to whatever guilt or whatever, just did not talk about that. And I think Sinead O'Connor was someone who had like a platform and obviously felt a bit more comfortable doing that on American TV. Yeah. I think the other thing that I've heard about the SNL incident is basically just like the Americans just didn't seem to get it. Like Joe Pesci like threatened to punch her in the face because he was a good Italian Catholic. Motherfucker just didn't get it.
Joe Pesci.
Well, that's but that's the thing though, is that is definitely an American way, because I think that this is probably the same thing within like the Irish American community too. Is that like not wanting to like being a good Catholic is then obviously also like ignoring all of the very open bad stuff that then the Catholic Church does on an international level. You know, like the child abuse scandals are not only just an Ireland thing. They have popped up in every part of the world. And the Vatican was very active in making sure that they would crack down on them or hiding them. First off, hiding them. I mean, like, remember, Joseph Ratzinger or Benedict XVI literally had to step down because of these related scandals. You know, something that hadn't happened in hundreds of years of a pope stepping down. And now, because of that, the Catholic Church has then taken the exact opposite stance of, like, any peep of potential child molestation will end up with you immediately excommunicated, because they don't want to, like, they won't even, the thing that's really weird is that the Catholic Church now, depending on, like, 'cause it's done on, like, a local basis, even then, like, you know, even though it's centralized with Rome, you're allowed to then, on your own diocese, you know, decide of who and what happens. And there's, like, I know for a fact that then within, like, local dioceses in the United States, that they've gone to the point of, like, they won't even bother investigating them. They'll just immediately, like, remove a priest, which is, like, also not good, because, like, then people can come and go and say, well, yeah, like, X priest molested someone with no evidence whatsoever, because the Catholic Church just doesn't want to start uncovering the actual shit again, because actual true allegations of that then ended up being they did the movie about this in Boston, like, from the Washington Post, right? Like a few years ago. Where the Catholic Church is so careful about this shit now that they're actually, like, not, like, it's weird. It's like, I think that, like, obviously covering it up and covering up the horrible things that happen to people's lives is fucking horrible and disgusting. And the Catholic Church is, you know, Sinead O'Connor's, like, absolutely right in pointing this out. And American Catholics will be like, no, like, the Catholic Church is good because I'm a fucking psychopath. But then I think also then the other side of it too, like, in the Americans, I mean, I don't know how this is internationally, but I do know for, like, a fact of it this way, of that then now the U.S. Catholic Church, like, won't even bother to even, like, doing investigations. They'll just start removing priests to kind of just, like, wipe their hands off it immediately, which is also, like, really fucking shit as well, instead of, like, actually trying to, like, you know, because I'm assuming, again, just the more you start digging, the more these old networks are going to start, like, you know, popping up again.
Oh, yeah.
You know? And the Catholic Church, I don't know. International fucking child prostitution rings are definitely something the Catholic Church has a lot of, maybe not but child abuse rings of priests having, like, networks of this is very much a thing, you know?
So, like, I think it was, like, 7 years later, the Pope kind of basically admitted that there was, like, a network of pedophiles. Like I said, she was, like, right too early. And there's other thing as well, like, Madonna, like, really ripped into her at the time. And I really wonder if there's anywhere on record if Madonna's been asked, like, so how do you feel about doing that? Because, you know, Sinead was right.
Madonna's always on the right side of history, though, right?
Other things that happened in Ireland in terms of, like, secularization and stuff like that was, like, 1995, we had the referendum to legalize divorce, like I mentioned earlier. 1993, homosexuality is decriminalized. Also in 1993, the Magdalene Laundry's mass grave was discovered, which was a home for what was referred to as fallen women, who were, as later revealed, to be, like, massively abused, both sexually and physically, mentally, I'm sure, and a lot of them driven to death and just kind of, like, buried in a big hole by some nuns. And 1990 to 1995 is like the various scandals from things that happened in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s of, like, priests.
I think you're just going to name, like, 1 or 2 decades, not just the entire 20th century.
All the decades since the 30s. Yeah,
since the founding of this country.
So by the time Father Ted, I don't know, first airs in 95, you say people are predisposed to a little bit of some light ribbing of the Catholic Church.
I think it's allowed to get a bit more pointed, I guess. I would describe what was happening in Scrap Saturday, like Dermot Morgan's radio skit show that was happening on the national broadcaster in Ireland. I would describe that more as light ribbing. One of my favorite sketches from that show, like this happened in the 80s, but, like, I remember listening to, like, tapes and CDs, whatever, was, like, Dermot and Pauline like the woman who played Mrs. Doyle, did like the Catholic Church's Guide to Sex, which was them just like in audio form pretending to have sex while constantly reassuring each other that this was for conceiving and we're not enjoying ourselves. Like there was this cultural critique. Yeah, it's pretty good. But like there was this cultural critique because it's very hard to critique the culture of Ireland and the politics of Ireland without talking about the Catholic Church, especially in the 80s. But yeah, I think people were more ready for it. I think it also worked as a panacea as well, because compared to what the stuff that did happen, the characters in Father Ted are silly. They're not necessarily monsters. So I think there's also like, I think it was also a kind of a form of cope.
Yeah, well, I think that's kind of inherent in the format of sitcoms. Like you're supposed to like they have to tend to lovable over time. That's why people watch it. So it kind of does blunt the edge of whatever you're trying to do. If you're even trying to like, I don't know, satirize or make a critique, which is maybe why I like the first episode the best. I don't know.
I think I could definitely show you more, like, because I think it's like the problem I think with the show as well, especially with international stuff, is the UK kind of I think looks at Father Ted and says that's all of Ireland. But I think in Ireland, Father Ted plays more of a role of satirizing like both Ireland of the past and like what still exists in Ireland today, which is like towns. Towns as opposed to like suburbs and cities. Like it is set on like an island off the west coast of Ireland, which is like the most remote you can really get in that country. So there is like this like distinction there. Yeah, but it's I don't know where I was going with that point. Sorry, but like, I think there's a lot of stuff there that can be said about like small town Ireland that I think you would enjoy, Rob.
Sure, I'm in. Yeah. We can watch them together. little Father Ted and chill.
Yeah, we do watch parties if that wasn't like highly illegal.
I've been doing it on like on the internet, so not Father Ted watch parties. I've been watching baseball with the Hula 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 boys and Adam Baltna. So
we could do it on, if Father Ted is on Amazon Prime, we can do it on Twitch.
You can also do it on. You also can do it on YouTube.
Yeah, but I think they're on YouTube. I think illegally.
No, they're not.
We'll talk about this later.
Yeah, okay. In conclusion, Sinead O'Connor walked so Graham Linehan could run. That's the 90s art.
If
for
Graham
you.
Linehan converts to Islam, I'm so fucked.
That'd be so cool. Yeah, then his fucking sins are absolved then.
If he converted to Islam, it would be the most interesting thing he'd ever done in his life. So he should.
Yeah, like that will like. Unlike Rob, I'm willing to say that I enjoyed the IT crowd, but that would be much better than the IT crowd. All right. With that, that's a bonus episode. We will see you guys on the main feed on Monday. Ciao, ciao.
See ya.
Bye.